Yeah, the WNBA is heading towards a lockout, and best case scenario, um, it gets figured out in like April, and we see the expansion draft, free agency, all happening at the same time. We might, in fact, see free agency last a week. Like there'd be 1 week of free agency, and it's looking like it's heading towards that. So first of all, we saw this from Nekawumke. We heard this from Nekawumke. We are negotiating with the league, and at least seven, who knows, maybe all 13 teams seem to be unwilling to share in the growth that we are driving that, as many have said, especially on this call, that our labor produces. They know the business is doing well and continue to do well, and yet they want to have it both ways and claim that sharing league and team revenue is not possible right now. How can that really be? It must be that we are bargaining. It must be it's time to pay the players. I think the reality is that the league is trending upwards, but if the WNBA teams commit to giving, instead of giving flat fees in this current CBA, which apparently the rumor is they're willing to quadruple salaries, the league has grown more than quadruple, but the problem is that if you give too big of a revenue split, if the league ever does go back to the way it was 2021, 2022, you're fucked. They're fucked. Like, if the league gives the players too many incentives, as in, like, when you include the charter, apparently there's a whole bunch of other things they're fighting for. If the team gives up a percentage split, a bad percentage split, and then the cost of all those other things are in the millions and millions and millions a year per team, you're going to be seeing WNBA teams going bust again. So it's one of those things where these teams really have to be careful, because you can offer flat fees, because whatever about you giving up flat fees, you can prepare for that in the books. You can't if it's a percentage of revenue, especially if revenue ends up being high, but the cost to run a team end up being super high as well. And then because they get a revenue split, not a profit split, it could actually be the case where these owners are pumping in money into different things. The league's pumping in money into a bunch of things to get revenue up, which means the players get more revenue, but teams might start making record losses. So, like, that's kind of why teams do it. Do I think the players deserve to get paid more? Hell yeah. But that's why the hold up is there on that. But this is one where I'm like, this is league's actually about to go into a lockout, from Breanna Steward right here, shared by this Twitter page.
Yeah, there's meetings that are happening. I feel like from a player perspective, like, it's really frustrating to me that we haven't been able to even come to an agreement as far as revenue share, because then we haven't talked about anything else important. And there's like family planning and player housing and like pension and the idea of like paying back former players for what they've done. So we really
They want to pay back former players. They want to pay reparations to former players. And I'm whatever about pensions. Not like, people are like, oh no, they want what the NBA had, where, you know, former players have their like health covered. And by the way, I don't know how much longer that's going to be covered in the NBA after the whole fraud scheme that happened with that. They literally want past players to basically get paid reparations, because, you know, you played when the WNBA wasn't great, so we're going to start paying you. I'm sorry, they're not handing $5 million a year to Terry. They weren't handing $5 million a year to Terry Dishinger because they weren't paying Terry Dishinger because of what he did in the past, in the 60s, growing the game. No, that man had to work as a dentist. That man is a multiple-time All-Star. One of the best players at that stage in NBA history, one of the top 200 players, 100 players of all time, era dependent. Maybe top 100 players of all time era dependent. That man was working as a dentist. So those NBA players from the 50s, 60s, 70s, even some in the 80s, were working regular jobs. They were working 9-to-5 jobs. And I understand there's like kind of a general retired NBA players thing. But like, they're not paying players for what they have done necessarily. But they're obviously, there's something in that. There is something in that. But at the end of the day, like I don't know how the players expect to win this. And again, maybe Stewie's misspeaking, and maybe it's just like helping past players. But I'm like, the way it sounds like is literally just handing them money because of what they used to do. And I'm like, I think it's a good thing to aim for, but like when you can't even agree on a revenue split, how can you get a revenue split and then ask for a billion extra things? So it's not a profit split, it's a revenue split. How can you expect these owners to give you a higher split of revenue and then use a large chunk of the revenue that they're keeping? They want the NBA split of revenue, which is 40%. First of all, the owners only get 42%. So if you get the revenue split that you want, that's 50%. The owners are automatically making a loss because you are getting paid more than the owners are receiving in revenue based on the revenue split that they've publicly asked for. They've said they want the same revenue split as the NBA. And even if they want to say it's 50% of what they have. So cool. So it's 21%. You are basically asking teams to work to run charter flights, house every single player, do a whole bunch of things for family planning, sort out everything with maternity leave and everything, be cool with players going overseas, potentially getting injured and not being 100% going into the WNBA season. You're asking owners to take all of those risks for 21% of the revenue, which even with the new TV deal is not going to cover everything you've asked for. It's not going to cover everything you've asked for. And I don't, like, the players do know this. Players are going to ask for everyone, and I applaud them for asking for whatever they want. But it sounds like it's at the stage where the players are all or nothing. Like, that's what it sounds like stage. It says here, like, an Ekwumke is like at least 7, which means obviously they're putting their proposals and they're coming back saying no. And the thing is that these owners are not dumb. They're not dumb. They're not in the league for it to be a charity case. They're in the league to make money. And there are scenarios where players can make a great living and the owners can make a bunch of money. And to do that, the league has to continue to grow, not just have one or two huge years because of Caitlin Clark. A player who, and by the way, you have less leverage this year because she's been injured half the year. She's been injured so often that it's like, oh, I mean, we kind of don't want to make all these promises because we don't think the league's going to continue to succeed. And I think there has to be at least 1 to 2 teams that is team owners that is like, this league, you're talking about, you're quoting numbers right now, and this league was on a steady trajectory and is shot up because of one player, and that player might be done for their career. She's not going to be, but that's the way the owners have to think about it. When you make these deals, you have to mitigate risk. And the problem is, if you give up a revenue split, you can't go back. Like, you can pay the players more, and then in the next CBA, you can just be like, yeah, we kind of messed up. Let's just hold it. Halt the money. You get like your normal percentage raise every single year. If you give up a revenue split and things don't go well from the owner's perspective, they're fucked. Like, if they give up a revenue split and this league does not continue to grow, the revenue split the players want, this league will not exist. If there's a lockout, this league may not exist in 5 years if there's a lockout. If Caitlin gets hurt and the players get paid too much of a revenue split, and it's not even necessarily about the money, because ironically, they could end up being in a situation where even with the revenue split they want, they could be getting paid less now. But the problem is that long term, it just puts a huge risk on the owners, because again, Kathy Engelbert sold a large chunk of the league, and the NBA still owns the exact same amount as what the WNBA owners do. So I think that's kind of the problem. The problem is, when it comes to the players, is that the WNBA at the start made a deal with the devil to stay afloat by staying afloat based on the NBA. And then in 2022, Kathy Engelbert made another deal with the Devils, selling off 18% of the WNBA. And now they're fucked. They're fucked. Like, there's no way that the players get what they want without potentially fucking up this league long term from the owner's perspective. And there's no way the owners get they want without pissing off all the players and potentially having the players say, cool, we're out, we're going to go play in Unrivaled. And then you've got the two co-owners of Unrivaled at the fucking table it's in their interest to cancel the league season. It is in their, I don't care what anyone says, Unrivaled is now went from being worth 40 million to 300 million. The players own 50% of that, as far as I'm aware, own over 50% of that league. And the players as a whole, I don't know who owns what percentage. But let's just say the players own 50, for argument's sake, the players own 50% as a whole. Those 36 players, or Paige, or all these other players that have ownership stakes now, between them all, it's like 300, or it's like 150 million. Like, these players, on average, are gaining about $5 million from just the increase in Unrivaled's value in 1 year. They've gained $5 million. If the WNBA doesn't happen and Unrivaled doubles in value again, it's not going to 10x, but let's say it doubles in value to 600 million. Those players profit an extra 5 million on average. They profit an extra 5 million. If the WNBA season does go ahead, even if you get the craziest max contract, it might take 5 years to get 5 million. Where not only that, you're in your ownership in a league that's booming. And yeah. And if one thing Unrivaled know how to do is they know how to get money. So anyway, yeah, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.